So right in this video, we're going to talk about list comprehensions. List comprehensions are a way to manipulate lists to create other lists. So for example, I'm going to go to the Python shell again, and say I have a list A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a list of numbers. And I want another list which is these numbers squared to the power of 2. The power of 2 in Python is written with double stars. So for example, 3 star star 2, that's 3 to the second power, that's 9, right? So if I type 3, that's 27. It's 3 times 3 times 3, right? So say for example I want a list B that is going to be each of these elements raised to the power of 2. If I were to do this in Java, I'm going to write now a little program for this. So I have my list here, A, I just copied it. Now if I were to write a program in Java for this, I would do this. A equals that, and then I would say for I in range 0, comma, len of A. This is a direct translation from a what you know a beginner in Java would do. And then I would say A sub I times 2, right? And I would somehow store it someplace, right? I would probably create a list B, and then I will say B sub I equals A sub I squared. That works, right? That is one way in which things can work. So let's save this file. Let's save as, and let's put a name here. Print 4. Okay, so I'm gonna do lists py. So let's quit this and let's run my program. So Python lists py. What I get here is, oops, a little error. List assignment index out of array. I'm sorry. I'm going to put here this, I'm going to initialize this array. So there's 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there you go. So that's 6 elements. Okay. So this might be a regular Java program. So let's run it. And it ran. I forgot to print B, so we can see that it actually ran. Let's run it again. And of course I get 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and 36, which is the square of each one of these things. Square of each one of these numbers. This is incredibly long for what we're doing in Python. Okay? Instead of this, we're going to not do B. Okay? We're not going to loop want. If you just want the elements of an array, you don't need to create another list of positions. You just say for I in A. So for each element in the list A, what you're going to do is you're going to say the following. Let's have B be a list, empty list. What I'm going to do is for B in A, look at what I'm going to do. Sorry, not even going to do that. What I'm going to do is for B in A, I am going to, let's say I have an empty list. I'm going to append, I'm going to do B dot append I square. Okay? I'm going to append I square. That's the running code that I have right now. So what this is doing is for each element in this list, I'm going to square it and append it to the list B, which is an empty list that I just created. Okay? And then I'm going to print the list at the end. This is very clear. It's a lot clearer than ranges and stuff like that. So let's run it. I run it and it produces the same output. But there's one more thing we can do. What we can do is this. It's called a list comprehension. And it's this. I'm going to write it first, and then I'm going to explain it. What I'm going to do is B is going to be a list, because it starts with square brackets and ends in square brackets. It's going to be a list where the elements is going to be I squared for each of the I elements in the list A. So I'm going to loop through A, and for each of these elements, I'm going to put I squared in the list B, and then I'm going to print B. So I'm going to save this and run it, and lo and behold, it produces the same output. Now this is the Pythonic way to manipulate elements of a list if you want to transform them just to put them in a different list. Okay? So for example, a count, or if you want to, say for example, have words in a file and each word is an element in a list, and you want to do something to each of those words, this is the way you do it. Okay? And we're going to do just that. Okay? I'm not going to cover strings just now in Python, but I'm going to start giving you some methods with strings and a list comprehension. For example, if you were to say you have well, one really interesting instruction in Python is the split command in strings, one interesting function. So let me go to the Python shell and I will show you the following. In the Python shell, this is one example of list comprehensions, but first let's create a list. Let's say you have some text. The dog bit the man on the moon when eating hot dogs. Hot dog. If you type a text with 3 quotes at the beginning and 3 quotes at the end, you can actually hit enter and it'll still be text. Okay, so text in Python, or strings in Python, can be single quoted, double quoted, and triple quoted. So that's the text, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this to a variable. I'm going to create a variable A equals that text. Look what happens if I do a dot split space. What this is create a list of all the words in A, but I'm sorry, create a list from A where each element of the list is, you look at A and you're going to look at a space, and whenever you see a space, that marks a new element of the list. So basically what you're saying is that look at the spaces here, and that's where you split the string and create a list of each of basically the words, because you will be splitting on spaces. And lo and behold, here's the list. The first one is the space that we split it, then the dog bit the man. It's each word there. So knowing that, look the things we can do here. So say for example I have some text in A. So I'm going to create a new program now. Here text is going to be hello there, I love to say hi. Exclamation mark. That's why I like the beach. I don't know. Some text. Okay? And now what I can do here is to say, first make it into a list. Lists are good friends of you in Python. Lists are your friends. So TL for text list, it's going to be text.split, split in space, okay? And then what you're going to do, here's what I'm going to do. I want to remove this exclamation marks and these quotes, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do clean text is going to be, and this is a list comprehension. Each string, remember TL is a list of all the words. This is a list with all the words. But because it's splitting in space, I'm going to have a word that's high exclamation mark, because the spaces are around it, right? So actually let's print that. Let's print TL and see what happens. I saved it in the same file. I saved it as a file called lists.py, and I'm going to run it. I type Python lists.py, and what I get is each word in its own list, because I used the split command, But then look at this word, high exclamation mark. That's with an apostrophe, right? So what I want to do is I want to get rid of that. There's a command for the string called replace that I can tell it what character, what to replace it with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, for example, if I type TL sub 0, that's the first word in TL, and I say replace the letter H with the capital H, for example, okay? And then I print TL, look what's going to happen in my program. Oops, I need to print this. TL sub 0 dot replace. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the string in sub 0 and replacing it. Now I'm going to print it. I'm not going to print the whole list now. So you go like that, and it prints the first element, hello, but with the replaced H. Okay, so it prints uppercase H, hello, right? So let's say I want to replace, for example, the exclamation mark with nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do clean text, and I'm going to use a list comprehension. Usually what you would do in other languages is a for loop for each element on the list, then clean it and append it, and so on and so forth. But there's a quick way to write this. We can say I dot replace exclamation mark with nothing for I in TL. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying for each element, I can call this word just so it's more understandable. For each word in TL, okay, replace the exclamation mark with nothing and add it to clean text. If there's no exclamation mark, nothing will be replaced. The word remains unaltered. And then I'm going to say print clean text. So we try that, and we see that hi now does not have the exclamation mark. I also need to replace the apostrophe, right? So one thing that I can do is concatenate this replace. Word.replace returns a string. Because it's a string, I can do dot replace again, and then say replace the apostrophes with nothing. Or, yeah, with nothing. I'll save it and run it. And then I have hi without exclamation marks, and that's without the apostrophe, right? So I'm sort of cleaning the text via list comprehensions. I don't need to do complicated for loops and keep track of indices and stuff like that. I can just do all in one simple command, which is clear. Clean text is going to have the word. I'm going to replace the exclamation mark by nothing, and I'm also going to replace the apostrophes with nothing for each word in this TL, in this list with all the words. It is very clear. List comprehensions are good. They're your friends. Stay tuned for the next installment. We'll talk about dictionaries.